Now, did you know that around 8 million metric tonnes of plastic goes into oceans each year? That's the equivalent, apparently, of 16 shopping bags full of plastic for every metre of Australia's coastline.
Incredible image being created there. Well, experts are warning that unless we act now, by 2050 there will be more plastic by weight in our oceans than fish. So, what can be done about it? Well, joining us in the studio is Tim Silverwood. He's the Chief Executive of an organisation called Take 3, and he's got a possible solution, but you need our help. Is that right? Every little bit counts in this instance.
That's right. I think with collective impact we can make a dent in this problem.
So how does the campaign work? What's the idea?
It really is simple. It's take 3 or more pieces of rubbish with you when you leave the beach, the park, the waterway, or anywhere really. The ocean is unfortunately downhill from everywhere. So if we see rubbish on the ground, particularly plastic, we have an opportunity to pick it up, dispose of it thoughtfully, and prevent these disastrous impacts when it reaches our oceans.
Because once it gets to the ocean, there's pretty much nowhere else for it to go, and you know this just about better than anybody, given that you did in fact make an incredible journey to what has become known as the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Tell us a bit about that, because this really puts it into perspective, doesn't it?
It does. Very, very thankful that in 2011 I was lucky enough to join an expedition sailing from Hawaii all the way to Vancouver in Canada to study the infamous Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Now, it's been reported in media as being a floating island of rubbish. Now, what I witnessed out there was very different to that. It was more like a giant plastic soup. We were sampling the ocean surface and finding plastic in every single sample, but a lot of it was actually very tiny. It was what we call microplastic. Most of the microplastic comes from when plastic breaks apart. Plastic being so synthesized with so many man-made chemicals, it doesn't naturally biodegrade, but it does fracture and become smaller and smaller. And that's when it becomes very alarming, because that's what we're now finding in fish, in oysters and mussels, right the way through the food chain.
It looks pretty foul. Now, in Australia, of course, for years we've had campaigns dedicated to this kind of thing. You know, Clean Up Australia, of course, focuses on the beach and around waterways a lot. Is it not working, or is the problem just getting worse?
You've only got to look at our appetite and our relationship for plastic, particularly single-use plastic. You walk into a major supermarket now, everything seems to be wrapped or packaged in plastic. So we're using much more than ever before. It's about 64 kilograms per person per year here in Australia. And as I said before, the ocean is downhill from everywhere. So it's escaping our clutches and it's getting there. We think clean-up operations like Clean Up Australia Day are just fantastic. A 25-year legacy of Australians getting out and making our communities cleaner. I think what I'm passionate about is seeing that as a behaviour change. If we can get people doing that every day, or anytime they see some plastic on the ground, what a wonderful opportunity to prevent the problem before it becomes a problem.
And this is something that we're seeing take off in other parts of the world as well. I understand the campaign is being rolled out in places like Scotland and Hawaii, of course, which you're familiar with as well. So how critical is it that we have an initiative, not just here in Australia, which has an incredibly large coastline, but worldwide?
Yeah, I think it's a wonderful opportunity. I think social media and the way we're communicating now has seen our campaign flourish. It's over 50,000 followers now across our social media channels. And so to know those people are out there, not just responding to the problem by doing what we call a little micro cleanup, picking up some rubbish, but they're also looking at their relationship with plastic and starting their own little localised projects. And I think when this problem is just so big, it might seem strange to deal with it in such a small way, but I actually think that's the only way we're going to solve this problem. We need a movement, we need a cultural shift to respond to this enormous problem.
And do you think that's the key to its success, the plugging it into social media? Because I suppose, you know, people want to do something good for the environment, but, you know, people might want to be seen to be doing something good for the environment too. Hashtagging and putting it on Instagram and that kind of thing.
Absolutely, and that's, we'll take it, you know what I mean? It's been a great way to see the campaign be something that people want to be seen to be supporting. And that's really what we're working on at the moment with this summer campaign here in Australia. Pick it up, snap it, share it. We're basically saying, when you're out there doing this micro cleanup, it's significant citizen science. It's just that no one's created the tools yet to capture the data. When we go and do a normal beach cleanup, we'll actually catalogue all the items that we find, but it's quite a long and onerous process. By putting it into the power of people's hands using their smartphones, we can capture that data straight away. And so we're really interested in expanding our citizen science capabilities with this campaign. So you've only got to look online, you'll find plenty of information about it with Take 3 for the Sea.
Now, I understand as well that a target has been set of some 300,000 pieces. At this stage, of course, we can always do more, can't we? Are we on track? How are we travelling?
Look, we're doing pretty well. In the first month of the campaign, we've collected around 30,000 pieces of rubbish, and that's just from those items where the photographs of people have actually tagged Take 3 for the Sea and recorded how many items they collected. So we're asking people to do their cleanup, lay the items out flat, take a photograph and share it with that Take 3 for the Sea tag. Then we can actually go through it and analyse it, see how many plastic bags, how many beverage containers, all those different items. And the more we understand about this problem, then the smarter decisions we can make to prevent it. And that's really at the core of what we're trying to do with our Take 3 for the Sea campaign.
And we're seeing some of these things come through, and these photos, and you've been cataloguing it. What is the offender number one when it comes to plastic containers or rubbish?
I mean, there's so many. I think beverage containers have been a huge ongoing problem, and that's why it's very wonderful to see states in Australia now adopting the container deposit scheme to address that.
And water bottles, of all things.
Of course, yes. Yeah. I mean, people are very passionate about the plastic water bottle. Personally, I go for the tap, but that's my own stance on things. But also plastic bags, plastic straws, coffee cups. There's so many of these very highly consumed items that we're seeing in large quantities coming through.
All right, well, every little bit counts, doesn't it? So let's make that work for us, shall we? Tim Silverwood, wonderful to have you with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.